Well, hello, everybody. Oops, hold on. I have to turn off the music first.
It's off.
It's off for all of you, but it was still in my playing in my ears. Okay, but now it's off. Welcome everybody. I'm Wendy Galernter. I'm your host today. I'm so glad to see so many people from all around San Diego County and even places beyond. We have a lot to discuss today, so I think without further ado, I'm going to share my screen again and we'll get right into it. But I want to make a special welcome to people who are here for the first time. This is our Take Action Monthly Zoom meeting. We have a guest speaker each month, and today we are especially honored to have a fantastic guest speaker. I know you're going to all really enjoy hearing from Andrea and benefit from her, and we will get to her talk momentarily. So let me share my screen again, and we'll get right to the agenda, which is like, ah, before the agenda. If you haven't already, please use the chat to say where you are calling in from. And we will definitely have questions and answers after Andrea's presentation today. So if you can, please use the Q&A function in Zoom. It helps us keep track of it better than putting your questions in the chat. But if you can't figure out Q&A, don't worry. We'll look at the chat also. We record all of these and we get them up within 24 hours after the meeting, and I will send you all an email with a link to the video, which we hope you will share to friends and other people that you know. And that email will also include all of the links to websites and other information that get mentioned today. And as I said, we have a very simple agenda today. Really, the main topic is our guest speaker, Andrea St. Julian, and then we will have about 10 minutes at the end to talk about some upcoming actions and events that I think you will be interested in. But the main event today is Andrea St. Julian, one of my favorite San Diego and really California activists who I met, I think, Andrea, about 7 years ago when you had just started writing the draft of what became Measure B and then what ultimately passed with 75% of the vote in San Diego and created the Community Police Oversight Board that is functioning today and was really the first civilian board in the city of San Diego for that. It was an overwhelming success, and Andrea was the force behind that. But she's the force behind a lot of other things. She has a million honors and awards, and what she's going to be talking to us today about is her next great project and something that I know a lot of you are interested in, which is how can we modify our system of voting to be more democratic, more fair, and represent more what people really feel. And Andrea has a brilliant answer to those questions. And so I think without further ado, I am going to turn this over to you. Andrea, do you have slides today?
I do.
Okay, then I better make sure that, let me stop. Oh, there we go. I will stop sharing and turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you so much for that introduction. And I am eager to get started. And I saw a comment in the chat from Brian. Brian, I'm going to be really eager to speak with you. Maybe we can have coffee sometime and talk about it a little more. I do want to just start out saying that, Brian, I don't think you understand choice voting and what it brings and that's what I'm going to try to explain right now. And I hope um, you will be open-minded enough to kind of have a conversation about that. But before we get to that, let's get started with choice voting. So I am going to share my screen. Fabulous, fabulous. So choice voting, how did I get here? As Wendy discussed, I started out doing police reform. And so how did I get into this for the last 5 years? When we were working to create the Commission on Police Practices here, as Wendy said, we won with 75% of the vote. Even though it was clear that the overwhelming majority of voters wanted a new Commission on Police Practices, even after we won, we had electeds and city officials still fighting against us. And I thought to myself, how is this even possible? That electeds know fully well what community members want. It is something that is good for everyone, yet they feel empowered to actively work against the voters. And that's when I started taking a deep dive and realized that it's our voting system that empowers them to, in fact, ignore us. At first, that was a little depressing, but then it was kind of empowering because I thought, well, if it's our voting system, then we can change it. And that's what choice voting is all about. Part of my deep dive started, of course, with the community and talking with community members. And uh, uh, last summer, I was working with a group of people who did a poll of San Diegans, and we found out that 78% of San Diegans believe that corruption is definitely an issue in our local government. 70% of people said that people like them have little influence on city government. People believe that the city is headed in the wrong direction. And I don't know, maybe the saddest of all is that 62% of San Diegans feel elections don't account for underrepresented communities. So it's my sentiments weren't singular. Most San Diegans feel very similarly to how I feel, and it's really warranted. When you look at the history of San Diego, we have a legacy of corruption and dysfunction. Just last year, a report came out about $15 million in unauthorized spending by the mayor's office. We all remember Winnow and Ash. I have up here on the slide $132 million plus has been wasted, but it's much more than that. And these recent scandals aren't the only scandals. We have scandals going back decades. Sunroad, Dick Murphy, the pension fund. We all remember the pension fund, Strippergate. I could go on and on. Um, but this just really shows how the feelings of San Diegans are not just feelings. The feelings are very justified and grounded in fact. So what's the root problem? The root problem is our voting system. Our voting system rewards special interests and big donors. It encourages division and negative campaigning. It disempowers grassroots voters. It works to protect incumbents and entrench power, and it fosters posturing over actually solving our problems. And there are a lot more harmful effects of our voting system. One is that it supports gerrymandered districts. And also, it supports lower voter turnout as a result of the primaries and voter disillusionment. And there are so many other things that our voting system does. So, choice voting, how do we get there? We started with the community as we always start. We talked to community members. We had forums in different parts of the city, and we wanted to find out what were the pain points for voters and individuals and community members, what they thought about our local government, what changes they thought they wanted to make. We took that input and then we got additional input from experts around the country. These were academicians, they were professors, they were activists, um, uh, people who really had done a deep dive and had a deep understanding of voting systems. We took all that information and we then designed a voting system for San Diego that addressed the needs that had been identified by San Diegans themselves. So, what did we come up with? We came up with something that we call choice voting. And it is a combination of ranked choice voting and also another form of voting called proportional representation. Another word for this type of voting, or another phrase, is proportional ranked choice voting. Now, there are a lot of different forms of ranked choice voting. There are different forms of proportional representation. There are a lot of different forms of proportional ranked choice voting. So you can't just look at other forms and know exactly what choice voting is. Okay. Choice voting was designed to meet the needs of San Diegans as it should have been, you know. So that's something that's really important to know and understand. I think a lot of people know ranked choice voting and are familiar with that. Fewer people probably know proportional representation, but I will say this: forms of voting similar to choice voting are considered by most experts in the area as really the gold standard of voting. And what does that mean, the gold standard? It means it gives people the highest ability to get appropriate representation, and it works well, much better than our current system in holding electeds accountable and reframing the incentives so that electeds are accountable to us rather than big dollar donors and special interests. So, what is this choice voting? So, it has three main features. The first is you rank candidates by preference. Okay. So, you've got a slate of people, let's say, running for mayor, and say 5 people are running for mayor. Instead of just voting for one, you decide who is the candidate that you really want to win, and you rank them as your first vote. And then your second choice as your second vote, and on until you've ranked everyone that you would like to rank. That's what ranked voting is. The second thing about choice voting is it creates 6 additional at-large city council seats. Okay, so we would keep the 9 that we have in each of the districts, and then we would add 6 at-large city council seats. And then finally, the major feature of choice voting is that it ends primaries. All voters vote in one election, which is a good thing because primaries are pretty evil and there's absolutely no need for them when you have when you're able to rank your candidates. What are some of the great things about ranking voters? It means you don't waste as many votes, right? So when you rank a candidate, if your first choice has absolutely no way of winning, then your vote transfers to your second choice. It's not wasted, it's not eliminated as it is in our current voting system. So you still have an ability to decide who is going to be, for in my example, who's going to be mayor, even if your first choice can't win. That is incredibly, incredibly powerful. And we'll talk a little bit more about specific examples of how powerful that is. And so let's talk about the 6 additional at-large city council seats. This is where the proportional representation comes in. As I said before, under choice voting, we're going to be keeping the 6 existing city council seats, one from each of the 9 districts. And then we're going to have 6 at-large city council representatives who are voted in by everyone in the city, right? And that's what's called proportional ranked choice voting. The beauty of this system, and we've talked to a lot of people and a lot of San Diegans, and they are very excited about this mix of district city council members and at-large members because it maintains strong neighborhood representation while increasing diversity of thought and lived experience on the council. Another way of saying it is you will always have one city council member who represents your geographic interests, right? So there's always someone you can go to talk about a pothole or a streetlight. But at the same time, because of the proportional representation method, it is very likely that you will have at least one or more at-large city council members who also represent your values. And that is what is missing so often from our city council. We really oftentimes, as voters, as community members, have a hard time connecting with a city council member who represents our values. So how does this happen? How do these six at-large city council members, how is it that they're more likely to represent our values? Well, with the six city council, six at-large members, because you rank the votes and because it is done through a proportional representation method, each city council member, at least the additional at-large members, only need 14% of the vote plus one to win a seat. That means a lot more people are going to get represented. A lot more of the values that we hold are going to be represented on the city council. Okay. So it's going to result in a city council that reflects San Diego's values and priorities. And again, this type of voting is considered by most experts a gold standard. And the reason why I say a gold standard is there are different forms that fit best for different jurisdictions. So there, and although they have the same core features, they're a little bit different in specific implementation. So let's look at some of the benefits of choice voting. You will never have to settle for the lesser of two evils, right? I don't know about you, but there have been many elections where there was someone on the ballot, a candidate who I loved, who shared my values, who I so desperately wanted to vote for. But I knew they had very little chance of winning. And I was afraid if I voted for the person I really wanted to see win, it would be as if I were throwing away my vote and that I could actually help a person who I couldn't stand win. Okay. That is a product of our current voting system. It does not have to be. With choice voting, you'll never have to worry about that because you can vote as your first choice, the person you really want to win, the person whose values really resonate with you. And if when votes are being counted, it becomes clear that your number one choice has absolutely no possibility of winning, then your vote moves to your second choice. You will never have to vote for the lesser of two evils ever again, right? There's no more vote splitting, right? You don't have to worry about that anymore. Let's say two progressives and one conservative are running for a seat. And the two progressives have most of the votes, but they're splitting them pretty equally. That sets up a situation where the conservative could win because the two progressives split the vote, even though if all progressives had voted for one of the candidates, a progressive would have clearly won. That is part and parcel of our current voting system. But that doesn't happen in choice voting. Let's again look at that example, two progressives and a conservative. If you can go ahead and vote for that progressive you really want to see win, but if they can't win, your vote goes to the second choice which would be the second progressive. And so when you have a community who wants a progressive to win, you'll ensure that that happens and that the votes simply aren't split in a really negative way. Now, I used the example of a progressive, but if this were a conservative community, you could do the reverse example. What it does is it ensures that the community values and what the community really wants are implemented as opposed to what our current system does. And of course, it ensures more votes are counted and more voters are represented, as I've just explained. It rewards candidates collaborating and actually problem solving instead of just posturing and just talking about change. It strengthens accountability to the full community, which is one of the real beauties of choice voting. Uh, Votes are more powerful, and because they're more powerful, it incentivizes electeds to be more accountable to what voters really want. It makes it much easier to replace officials who don't reflect community values. And this is where I want to talk about primaries and why they are so evil. Primaries really support incumbents, okay? Because of the primary process, incumbents have a huge leg up. One of the biggest legs up that they have is because primaries happen earlier in the campaign season, incumbents, by their very nature, have more money, okay? And newcomers have had less of a chance to raise money. So with a primary, this incumbent with a lot more money can really steamroll over other candidates, even though the incumbent may not be as popular as they should be. Um, and so that's something that's hugely important. Um, yeah. Also, primaries are decided by, or really people who vote in primaries, it's a much smaller percentage of voters than in general elections. So we have a small percentage of people, a smaller percentage of people who are deciding who the rest of us vote for in general elections. So if we get rid of the primaries, which choice voting does, that leads us to get rid of that incumbent advantage, and it also makes sure that whoever is elected really comes from a larger number of voters than our current voting system. And it also, and choice voting really encourages positive campaigning. And let me give you an example of how and why that happens. If I'm out and I come to your door and I'm running for an office and I tell you, I really want you to vote for me, and you have really decided that you want to vote for someone else. If I said to you, "Oh, that other person is awful. You shouldn't vote for them. They're horrible. These are all the reasons why they're horrible." You would look at me and say, gosh, no, I don't think that person is horrible. I think you're horrible." Okay? And you would not get anywhere. But if I came to you under a choice voting system and you said to me, "Oh, I'm voting for this person," I would say to you, "Great. Vote for them as your first choice, but vote for me as your second choice." That's how it encourages positive campaigning. So, what does all this mean? It's actually really simple. This is what a choice ballot looks like. You just decide who your first, second, and third candidate is, third, fourth, fifth, depending on how many candidates there are. And it's amazing how this very simple way of voting has such a huge and powerful effect. More than 63 jurisdictions nationwide have voting similar to choice voting. Portland, Minneapolis, Cambridge, Albany have very similar forms of choice voting. Other uh, jurisdictions that have similar but not quite as similar are San Francisco, Oakland, New York, and Alaska and Maine. And speaking of New York City, let's talk a little bit about New York City. New York City is the poster child of what is so beautiful about choice voting. Look at Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo's super PAC had 15 times more money than Zoran Mamdani. Cuomo was backed by most of the establishment political figures. But because of ranked choice voting, Mamdani and one of Mamdani's opponents, Brad Lander, cross endorsed. They did the thing where it's like, okay, I want you to vote for me first, but if you don't vote for me first, then please vote for Brad or please vote for Zoran, right? And that worked beautifully. They collaborated and worked together. And despite the overwhelming force and money and support that Andrew Cuomo had, Mamdani won. That is the poster child for choice voting, right? Um, and I want to emphasize something I had talked about before. Because there was choice voting, if I had been in New York and there hadn't been choice voting and I was looking at how to vote, I would have been really, really frightened to vote for anyone else other than Andrew Cuomo because I would have thought, oh, Mamdani, Lander, they don't have any chance of winning, or they have little chance of winning given all the money and power that Andrew Cuomo has and the name recognition that he has. I better vote for Andrew Cuomo because if I don't, Sliwa is going to win. You know, the conservatives going to win. Um, but with choice voting, with their form of choice voting, nobody had to worry about that. They could vote for Mamdani first, and Lander second, and third, and Cuomo third. Gorgeous. It is just fabulous. So how are we going to get there? We're going to put choice voting on the ballot in 2028. Um, that means we're going to have to collect a whole lot of signatures to get it on the ballot. In order to do that, we are right now collecting what we call signups and asking people to sign up so that when the petition becomes available in the last quarter of 2028, we can contact everybody, tell them that the petition is ready to sign, and then get people to sign the official petition at that point. So, what are our asks today? First of all, of course, I would love it. I would appreciate it if everyone here could sign up to sign the petition. Also, we need volunteers, we need donations, and we'd love your organizations to become an official supporter of choice voting. So, you can sign up here. All you need to do is go to thejusticeworkshop.org, and there's the QR code that you can use to go and to sign up. Let's see. Also, next is volunteering. This is going to be an all hands on deck effort. We need everybody. We are a grassroots organization. We are all about voters in the community, and we need everyone in the community to work toward getting choice voting. And I'm not much of a football fan, I have to admit, but Vince Lombardi's quote is one of the best quotes I've ever seen on this subject. Individual commitment to a group effort. That is what makes a team work, a company work, a society work, and a civilization work. It's really easy to volunteer and it doesn't take up too much of your time. There are so many ways to volunteer, and it can be as easy as one, just signing up to sign the petition when it becomes available. And if you know other people who you think might be interested, asking them to sign up to sign the petition. If you do that, you're a volunteer. So, um, please, there's the QR code. If you go to that link and you sign up to volunteer, there we have a list of so many things that you could do to volunteer. And again, we make sure that it's not going to take up too much of your time. Only the time that you have to give is what we'd like to work with. And of course, donations are always, always Um, Always welcome. As we said, we're a grassroots organization. $5, $10, whatever you have, we would more than appreciate that. And lastly, we would love for your organizations to sign on as an official supporter. And what does that mean? All it means is you send us your logo and we'll put you up on our website as an official supporter. It is truly that easy. Last but not least, I'm sure many of you are closely involved with other organizations. We would love to come and speak to your organizations and have a discussion about choice voting. So, with that, Wendy, I would come to my favorite part, which is answering questions.
Thank you, Andrea. That was great and obviously provoked many questions. And
Hmm.
So we have a list, but I will start with the first one, which is from Dwight. And what are your thoughts on how this change would lead to improved representation and equity for minority groups, such as those in Southeast San Diego or elsewhere?
Yeah, choice voting and forms of choice voting have been incredible. It's really shocking at how much diversity has been it increases almost immediately upon choice voting being implemented in Portland, in New York City. It is really wonderful, and it's really about being reflective of the community. That's what it does. It gives voters the power to vote for people that they want to vote for, to get people into office that have their values and resonate with them. So yeah, it's the best form of voting in terms of increasing diversity. And when I say diversity, I mean diversity of all types. Unfortunately, people think about diversity only in terms of race and gender, but it's so much broader than that. It's diversity in terms of values and philosophy. Um, do we ever ask how many homeowners are on the city council? Most of us are renters, but how many renters are there on the city council? That's a form of diversity or a lack of diversity. And that's an important issue when housing is such a problem here in San Diego, right? So those are the things to think about. But yeah, choice is simply the best in terms of um, increasing different types of representation.
Okay. And
Yeah.
this question, I guess, originated with Brian, but Peter reposted it, and it relates to how choice voting would have uh, made a different outcome or not a different outcome in the April 8th primary when Paloma Aguirre was running against a MAGA Republican. And
Mhm.
so it says the MAGA Republican on April 8th, so this was the primary, got just over 42%. The highest vote getting Democrat got just over 32%.
Mhm.
There's no guarantee that the second, third, fourth choice of voters would have voted for the top getting Democrat, in other words, Paloma,
Yeah.
who's getting sworn in on Tuesday.
If I have to be blunt, choice voting would have made it easier for Paloma to be elected. All right. First of all, you would not have had a primary. Okay. So get rid of the primary because that's, I think, the mistake that you're making. There is no primary. Everyone would have been running in one election in the general. And you would have had most people voting for Paloma and Vivian. People would have voted for one of them as number one and one of them as number two. Okay. So either Vivian or Paloma would have won. And probably Paloma would have won, but it would have been easier and cheaper. We spend millions of dollars on primaries. And let me tell, because when I start talking about primaries, I get very animated. Primaries cost us millions of dollars, all right? And the reason why the status quo wants them is because it keeps incumbents in office and acts as a free poll for incumbents. Incumbents look at what the primary numbers are, and then they know how to, it helps them run their general campaign. We, as taxpayers, are funding incumbents to stay in office who do not serve us. All right. We have got to get rid of that voting system. Okay. So um, I just have to say, quite frankly, anyone who wants to argue that we would have had um, some right-wing person in office because of choice voting is someone who doesn't understand choice voting at all. Okay? Not in the least. Choice voting is the opposite. It is our current voting system that allows electeds to get into office who don't truly represent voters and what they want. That's our current voting system. So this is a case where those who oppose, those who want to maintain the status quo, are now trying to label choice voting as doing what the status quo and what our current voting system does. That is, choice voting is exactly the opposite. And let's talk about the voting system that we used right now to with our current president. If you want to look at what would have happened if we would have had a form of choice voting in the 2024 presidential election, um, uh, Donald Trump would not be our president. If we had had it in 2016, he would never have been our first president. He wouldn't have won either if we had had choice voting. Okay. So, um, I think that before people start saying things about choice voting, they should really know what it is, what it says, and what it does. And as I said, um, it is the gold standard by activists, experts, political scientists. Um, it is used, and the 63 jurisdictions across the country are moving toward this because they understand the power of it. Right? I'm sorry, I could go on forever and ever about this, but I will go on to the next question.
All right. So, what you've outlined just refers to the city council.
It refers to the entire city, okay? It
Okay.
refers to the entire city. All city positions will be elected through ranked choice voting, okay? So you will rank um, uh, every single seat will be voted on through ranked choice voting. The proportional representation part, that of course only applies to what they call multi-seat positions, like a city council where there are more than one people in the position. So, and that's where again, there's so much magic in both ranked choice voting, but the really great representation really is apparent with proportional representation and those added 6 city council members.
How about school boards? Would it
The
extend to
school
school
board,
boards?
yeah, the school board is just going to be ranked choice voting. It is not going to have a proportional bent. At some point later, the community may decide that they want proportional representation. And again, let me go back. We worked with community members, figuring out what do they want, what is important to them, and so we've created something that really works to meet what the community has said that it wants.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, there were some comments about how campaign finance reform also assisted in Mondani's win. And if you have any comments on that and
Yeah.
how does it have any application in San Diego?
Yeah, campaign finance reform is great. I am a supporter of democracy dollars. I'd like to see that we have that at some point. It it would be a great addition, but that alone is not sufficient. There are um, Well, let me just say this. Going back again, with Cuomo had 15 times more super PAC money. But because of choice voting, Mamdani was still able to win. Okay. It it's one thing to want to give a candidate money in a system where money is so important. It's a totally different thing to create a system where money has less importance. And that is what choice voting does.
And Janet wants to know, are there two separate votes, one within your district and one at large?
Yes, you will be
Okay.
able to vote for your district city council member, and then you'll also be able to vote for the at-large members. And there were a lot of reasons, again, so many pieces fit into place with the at-large city council members. One of the things that has become a real concern for people in the city is the fact that because we have districts, often the city councilors vote in a way that's best just for their district. And it becomes very difficult for us to undertake projects that are good for the entire city. So having those six at-large city council members will be really helpful in that regard.
So the at-large people are a totally separate pool of people than
Yeah.
the the district specific
Yes,
people.
and this is something that's been in the city charter forever. It's not something that's being put in by choice voting, but a candidate can only run for one seat for each
Okay.
election. So you'll never have somebody who's running for a district seat and running for an at-large seat. You can only run for one or the other. Or yeah,
Okay, great. A lot of questions and
I
a lot of
love questions.
answers.
I love
Okay.
questions.
Do voters get penalized? In other words, their vote not being counted if they don't make choices on all the candidates. What if the voter only chooses their top two and didn't want to choose a third person, for
Yeah.
example?
No, a voter can just choose one or two or three or four or five. I would say, though, that unless you have a candidate that you hate and that you cannot rank, because I mean, you wouldn't sleep at night if you actually gave them a vote. It's really in your best interest to rank them because it makes your vote more powerful, you know. But there situations where, let's say, five candidates are running, and there are two that you hate, and you couldn't care less which of the two gets into office if one of the two is going to get, then you'd only rank three, and it wouldn't hurt you at all. Um, but yeah, it's always better to rank more as long as you don't have some real philosophical reason for not wanting to vote for a particular candidate. But no, you don't have to rank them all.
Cool. And someone else said apparently there are some growing pains when districts or cities first adopt choice voting systems. So is part of the initiative going to be guidance training for registrars of voters and departments of election for how to do it the right way?
Yeah, yeah. So there are always issues when there's a transition to anything, right? It's not transitioning to choice voting. Any transition in any type of an organization or city always comes with things that you have to do to make those changes and make those transitions. There are a lot of cities who've made the transition. We know a lot about making the transition. I was up in Portland at a conference earlier this year. Portland just transitioned to something in the 2024 election that is very, very similar to choice voting. And the election was just beautiful. They did it just a beautiful job. So um, jurisdictions now really or let me say this, there is a lot of information and a lot of support in transitioning to choice voting. It's not going to be that difficult, but yes, there are things in the proposed charter amendment that requires education and different things like that. And before I forget, if you go onto our website, thejusticeworkshop.org, we have the entire charter amendment written out. It's completely written out. You can read it. And to encourage people even more to write it, um, you'll when you go on the website, you'll see that it's written in two colors. Okay. And that's because, I wrote the charter amendment, wrote it all in regular black ink and font. And then a community member said, Andrea, this is good, but I'd like examples of each one of these things so that I can really understand it. And I thought to myself, that is going to take me forever to do. And I thought, I can't possibly do it. But then I thought to myself, oh, I have to do it. So, under each of the black sections of the Charter Amendment, there is a blue section that gives a concrete example of exactly how this works and plays out. And I wrote it all at a fourth grade level. Anybody who really wants to know this and understand this has every opportunity to understand it as, as in detail as they want to. And yeah, if I can just say, yeah, one thing about Portland. Portland had had a really difficult time being truly representative of their city. There were some sections of the city that really almost never had anyone elected from it until they got choice voting. And then the city became more represented. It was, again, beautiful.
And this might be the last question. Why wait till 2028?
Well, let's see. Now, this is great. If you have $5 million to give me,
Okay, sure. Yeah.
I will run it in 2026. We are a grassroots organization powered by voters and community members, and we really focus on doing what community members and voters want. That means we don't have huge sums of money to run campaigns, immediately or now, or, it takes us a while because we're working with volunteers and community members. It takes a while to get to where we need to be. So that's why it's in 2028. Listen, I'd have choice voting tomorrow if I could, but, you know, we need to talk to people and also let me tell you this. I mean, when I say we worked with community members on this charter amendment, we really did. We had community members read it, give us input. We made changes based on what community members wanted. And even when you go and we worked, it took 9 months of putting pen to paper to create this proposed charter amendment. And that was after literally 2 or 3 years of gathering information from community members, from experts. But when you go onto the website, you will see we still have the charter amendment labeled a draft. That's because we still continue to get input. I don't know if any of you are familiar with popular education, but Paulo Freire's popular education, but we started out gathering information from the community members. We then organized that information and that input into the proposed charter amendment. And now we've given it back to the community as a draft for community members to continue to give us input. And we've gotten some great input. Although, again, in terms of the framework of choice voting, community members have loved it. They have loved it. People don't want to have to choose the lesser of two evils. We don't want to worry about vote splitting. And I will tell you, just on a personal level, I have known of elections where, for example, two Black women would like to run for a particular seat. And one of the Black women is harassed mercilessly into dropping out because people are afraid that two Black women will split the vote. That will never happen again. And again, I just use two Black women as an example. It can be two progressives, it could be two conservatives, it could be two anything, who have similar outlooks. and and you will never have to worry about that fear of splitting the vote again. So I hope I have cleared up what choice voting is actually about.
I think so. One final question.
Please.
What's the response of the County Democratic Party to this?
Yes, I we have not spoken to the party leadership, but I can say we've spoken to Democratic clubs and the or at least one Democratic club and many Democrats, and they are overwhelmingly supportive. People people who follow elections and know voting systems know that this is the gold standard. This is this is and again, I hate to use that term because it can be so, vague, but it is the one that gives voters the most power. It is the one that incentivizes electeds the most to be accountable to the voters themselves.
Well, thank you, Andrea. I'm sure there will be other questions that people come up with, but I know that you are receptive to that.
I am.
And the Justice Workshop is where people need to go to get all the information. I will also include those links in my follow-up email. And
Thank you.
Andrea, if there's anything else you want me to
Yeah.
add in that follow-up email, let me know.
Thank you. Thank you. And just really, we answer our emails. If you email us with a question, you know, I'll give you a call and we'll talk about it. And we've got resources that explain things even in more detail if you go on our resources page, but we've kept it to a minimum to the things that we think best explain it. But no, I, I so much want people to understand deeply how fabulous choice voting is. The more you understand, the more you're going to love it.
Well, and I just have to add that, having watched the process to get Measure B and then the Police Practices Commission actually in reality happen, and the care and the meticulousness and the interaction and the feedback that you conducted, Andrea, in that process, and knowing that you took the same approach in this process and kind of did the research and traveled places and talked to people and had workshops and got and are continuing to get input, gives me a lot of confidence that you've done a lot of the work for us, and really appreciate everything that you put into it. I know it's kind of your heart and soul. And so really appreciate that and appreciate you coming here today. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And lots of people saying they signed up and you're a rock star. And yes, a friend from Portland just confirmed that it really worked well there. And thanks for the clear explanation. So yeah, yeah, no, this was great. And it's hard to follow that up, but I have 5 more minutes, everybody, just to tell you about some upcoming events. So I'm going to turn back to my slides and just go very quickly. Well, how do you like that? We were just talking about this. But thanks to everybody who I know people got involved at every level of this election, whether it was giving money. And by the way, we far surpassed our goal to raise $2,500 to elect Paloma Aguirre to the County Board of Supervisors. But look at this picture. This is the Democratic majority on our County Board of Supervisors. Three powerful women, three very different women. Um, all representing, I think, the ideas and the progressive principles that unite all of us. I just couldn't feel better and prouder, and just also, you know, so grateful for, I know so many people got involved in so many different ways in making this happen. And it will be a change for the county so much better. So I know we are all looking forward to that. And then I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody who was part 2 days ago of some of the Good Trouble events all around San Diego. There were 11 events around San Diego County, 1,600 around the country. These were very different events than these mass demonstrations that we've been seeing. There will be more of them. Don't worry. And I'm even going to talk about one in a sec. Uh, these were community building. There were picnics. There were vigils. There were food drives. There were barbecues. There were so many different ways that people got to sort of do their own creative ways that they were going to honor this wonderful person, John Lewis, and the good trouble that he advocated. And this photo is from Jonathan, who's on the call today. It was a youth led event down at Waterfront Park. The entire event was organized by a 17-year-old young man named Dane. The speakers were all young people. The attendance was very had many, many more young people participating, and then a lot of old people like me too, and everyone in between. And everyone who attended was so inspired by the work and the energy of these young people, and so wonderful to see so many of them becoming active. So it was a great day in San Diego County, and I think all around. And just want to go over a few upcoming actions and events. I will put the links to all of these in the chat in a second, but and that will also be in the email that I send. But just want to say that when I talk about some of the most critical events, they all fall into these four categories that we talked about last month in our meeting, whether it's to inspire and inform and grow our movement, whether it's to disrupt the MAGA movement, whether it's to aid and protect the vulnerable, or whether it's to organize for change with elections, new legislation, new policies, and new candidates. So some of the upcoming events that I think are really worth paying attention to. A training just 3 days from now, put on by a variety of organizations, the Sheriff Accountability Action Project, the Workers Circle, and many others. It's to train you how to make a call or write a letter or leave a message for our sheriff, Kelly Martinez, or the sheriff wherever you live, to convince them not to cooperate with ICE. And as you know now, there is new pressure on sheriffs all around the country to cooperate more with ICE, to turn more people over to ICE. And even though California has laws that very clearly say that sheriffs should not be doing this, Kelly Martinez is one of the sheriffs who has hedged her bets on this and who has been vague and not clear about this. So we need to put pressure on her. This training session will help us with messaging and what we really want to get across to a person like her. On July 24th, there is going to be an event in Chula Vista to release all the detainees that have been sent to El Salvador. And those of you who just looked at the newspaper, checked the news today, may have just found out they've all been released, or most of them have been released. We don't know, of course, because that El Salvadoran prison is a pit from which we can't get information about who's there, why they're there, and what condition they're in. So, despite the fact that apparently many of these men who were kidnapped out of the US, sent to the torture prison in El Salvador, and have been there for about 5 weeks, most of them now, we don't know how many and which ones, are in Venezuela, and most of them theoretically will be able to return to the US. But there are still many, many questions. There's still worthwhile to put pressure to never have this happen again and to make sure that the El Salvadoran government doesn't enter into any more agreements with the Trump administration doing this terrible North Korean style extrajudicial action. So this event is still going on, July 24th, Chula Vista. It's being organized by a new Indivisible group down there, Indivisible Chula Vista, a tremendous activist named Janine Manchel. I really urge those of us in our San Diego bubble to go down to Chula Vista and be part of this event on July 24th. It is a Thursday, so understanding that some people may not be able to make it, but the date was chosen because it is the president of El Salvador's birthday. And there's this article that just popped up today about the prisoners being freed, but still more questions than answers about how and why. Last month, we talked about town halls and how they also help grow our movement, bring more people in, and keep people informed and inspired. There is a July 27th town hall. It's going to be in Escondido, and Sarah Jacobs will be speaking there, the town hall we deserve, sort of amplifying the fact that Darrell Issa has still not had a town hall in his district. But you heard last month also from Peter Holmes and Calabrani, who are working on setting up town halls throughout San Diego County on issues like what's happening to our democracy or what's happening to our Medicare. And we hope that those will be replicated around San Diego over the next year and really not just grow our movement, but sort of reinforce our community and our neighborhood networks. It's going to be an awesome effort, so stay tuned on that. Our next monthly meeting is August 23rd. It's a Saturday, and we have a mystery guest speaker, a mystery to me at this point also, but we'll know who that is very soon, and I will let you know. But it doesn't hurt to put the date on your calendar. And then finally, last event I want to talk about, we are now organizing underway for a Labor Day, September 1st demonstration at Waterfront Park. And this is a huge number of San Diego organizations coming together to do this, but being led by the San Diego and Imperial County Labor Council, other unions, other labor groups, as well as Indivisible, Take Action San Diego, and many other organizations. And the demands are very clear: stop the billionaire takeover by the Trump administration, protect all of our social services, fully fund schools and healthcare and housing for all, stop attacks on immigrants, and invest in people and not war. So this is going to be the next large demonstration in San Diego and nationwide. So stay tuned for more details there. And then I'm just going to end with two quick slides. One is humorous, which is this one. And for those who don't ever look at the Borowitz report, I recommend taking a look. It's always satirical, always very smart, and always very funny. And he just does fake headlines, such as Trump signs executive order banning the word Epstein. I love this Hillary Obama slide of them theoretically laughing about the Epstein files. And then, though I don't always love Gavin Newsom, I really appreciate his comment on, oh, thank God, I've totally forgotten about the Epstein files because now Trump is putting cane sugar in Coca-Cola. But the more serious slide, and this is the last one, is again coming back to someone who I think is a hero for so many of us, and that is John Lewis. And there are so many wonderful quotes from him. It's hard to just pick one, but this is the good trouble quote. And I think it's probably the best one to leave us with because we do get lost in a sea of despair. It's impossible not to. We're human. But his advice is don't get lost. Don't become bitter or hostile. Be hopeful, be optimistic, and never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble. And how could I say anything better? Andrea is somebody who gets in good trouble. all of you as people who get in good trouble. And I thank you so much. You keep me going every day and you keep me from getting lost in a sea of despair. So thank you. Look for an email in the next 24 hours and we'll be in touch and we'll see you on August 23rd, if not before. Thanks, everybody.